Thank you, Senator Urquhart. Senator McDonald.
Tonight, I rise with a heavy heart because 3 weeks ago I raised with CASA the very serious situation of no passenger air services to Darnley and Marweeba Ag Islands as a result of CASA regulation. Despite there being no incidents reported on the airstrips on those islands, CASA closed the strips to commercial flights and withdrew the ability for these community members to affordably travel by air between islands. Instead, residents were forced into dinghies on notoriously dangerous waters inhabited by crocodiles and sharks. And on the 19th of April, the Torres Strait Islander Council met with CASA and asked them to allow for an exemption for the airline to land on these strips, island strips that this company had been landing on for the past 20 years without incident. And as usual, CASA gave a bureaucratic response that did not identify what the problem actually was that it was solving, nor did it offer a solution for the remote community to continue accessing commercial air travel, leaving people to traverse these treacherous waters in boats. No pathway was undertaken for the airline to receive an approval. Instead, they're undertaking landing trials with weights that CASA may or may not consider. But underscoring the confusion of CASA's conduct is the fact that the same planes being banned from commercial operations on the islands could still use the strips in a private capacity. Just take a moment to comprehend that. Commercial rules are understandably stricter than private rules, but you can see how industry participants and passengers get frustrated. Same plane, same airstrips, different rules. 3 weeks ago, I asked the representing minister, Assistant Minister Anthony Chisholm, do you think that for the two islands that have no passenger service going into them, this is a good outcome? And his response, the islands could apply for some funding for the airstrips to be upgraded. I asked the CEO of CASA to make sure the minister was briefed on the issue of no passenger service for these two islands. I wonder if that's happened, because the very worst news has been advised. Yesterday, after a 4-day search for Wendy Richardson, the search was called off. And I knew Wendy, and the last time we met, we discussed her father, Sir Robert Norman, the acclaimed pioneer of regional aviation in the Cape. Sir Robert saw the importance of providing an aerial service in the north for isolated communities, in a time when aviation was overseen by the Civil Aviation Authority. Wendy's loss is the exclamation point for years on years of conduct by CASA, which has my phone running hot with complaints every single week. I grew up in a time when aviation was easily accessible and a reliable way to conquer the tyranny of distance we experience in this country, especially in Northern Australia. I remember the local shows and events having not just automobiles in the car park, but dozens of light planes. It seemed that everyone in North Queensland flew, or at least knew someone who flew. Now flying is reserved for people with a lot of money or the patience and fortitude to navigate the mountains of regulation imposed on them by CASA. Regulations that many participants point out make no improvement to safety, but discourages flying and cruelly punishes minor indiscretions. Regulations the big players can afford to implement, but which forces smaller carriers to pay to retrain staff, replace perfectly functioning equipment and change work operations they've used for years without incident. Now, no one is blaming CASA for Wendy Richardson's death, but I want assurances that air travel is restored to these islands immediately. In the meantime, flight companies should be provided exemptions that will allow them to continue operations until more permanent fixes are in place. Because no one, and I mean no one, in Australia should be forced to cross open sea in a dinghy because our air safety regulations force them out of the sky and into an open boat. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Senator Rice.